Greetings, all. It's Dr. Bankhead here at the Struggle in Thinking Out Loud. And the topic of today's video is From Victimhood to Victory. That's correct. I've been doing these videos now a little over a month, and I have yet to tell my personal story. My story begins with my family of origin, which consisted of my mother, my father, and myself. My early years, as I can recollect them, from the ages of 1 to 3, were quite pleasant. My mother had enlisted the aid of a neighbor to be my babysitter. She was a parishioner at the Catholic church where my mother attended. And the neighbor was a witch, a kitchen witch. And she prayed a protection over me. She loved me from her own admission. She loved me so much that she wanted to take me as her own, but my mother would not allow that and removed me from her babysitting at the age of 4. That was when all hell broke loose. My father, who up until that time was allowing me to help him shave or tie his tie, and we were quite friendly with one another, but all that changed at the age of 4. After I was no longer with the babysitter, my father began to be physically, emotionally, and mentally abusive. I do remember at the age of 4, Christmas time arrived, and my dad sat me down to read a story about the good bishop from the Netherlands and how during the Christmas season he would give gifts to the poor children. And my dad asked me if I knew what that story meant, and I said, "There is no Santa Claus." He said, "That's right. And don't tell any of the other children." So at the age of 4, I knew there was no Santa Claus. My dad made sure I knew that. What did the abuses consist of? And why do I consider that they were abuses? Well, I was being beaten for being and doing what children do. I mean, after all, they're learning to be responsible. They're learning how to behave. I chose to only allow myself to remember a few of the incidences because I was 4, maybe 2.5, 3 feet tall, and my dad was 6 feet tall. And this is how it went. Whenever I was being punished, he would take me into the basement, shut the door, and then he would begin beating me. And the beatings consisted of using a rubber squeegee, which was about the size of a ruler, I would say, all made of rubber. And he would hit me in the palms of my hand. And he would hit me, he would tell me before he began the beatings that I was going to get a certain number, and that number was either going to be 50 in each hand or 20 in each hand. And in the palm of my hand, he would hit me quite hard. And if I drew my hand back or I started to cry, he would start from 1 again in the first hand. I guess you can imagine that it was in my best interest not to cry and not to jerk my hand. Imagine being 4 and having someone towering over you, beating you in such a manner. And then after the abuse was over, I was told that I could go upstairs to my room. I was not to go anywhere near my mother, and I was not to say a word about what had occurred. And this went on from the ages of 4 until I was 12, because my mother decided at the age of 12 that I was too big for him to continue beating. And so he changed the punishment to writing essays. And the essays would be from 500 words to 1,000 words. No repetitive words were allowed. And during this period, while I was preparing my 1,000-word essay on why I should not do whatever it was I was being punished for, I was not allowed to go out and play or to socialize with any children. I was only allowed to go to school and return home, do my homework, do my essays, and there was no TV and there was no telephone. And that went on, of course, until I got my essay completed. And even after the essay was completed, there was a waiting period for my dad to read the entire essay to make sure that I wasn't repeating anything at all. And then I would be allowed to go out. I used to cry myself to sleep when I was a child. I couldn't understand why I was being abused that way. Why my dad would beat me like that. Why he wasn't allowing me to express my emotions. And you can see it's making me emotional now, even as I recollect it. As a result, I had clinical anxiety, clinical depression, and PTSD. I have very little appreciation for corporal punishment, but I digress. Who was I going to talk to? I had no brothers or sisters to talk to. No one was experiencing what I was experiencing. And my mother was quite clever. At the age of 4, after I had several of these interactions with my dad, I was sick of the abuse and I said I was going to run away. My mom said, "Where will you go? Where will you stay? What will you eat?" And so even though she was helping me pack my suitcase as she asked me these questions, and she walked me to the front door, I got no further than the front steps as I thought to myself, where will I go? I had no idea, so all I could do was go back into the house, and I never tried to run away again. It was fruitless. So I had a very difficult childhood, I'll say. Because I was an only child, there were people outside the home who were under the impression that I was spoiled. I can't hardly express to you how it made me feel whenever someone said to me, "I know you're spoiled because you're an only child." I really wanted to beat them, except I'm not a type of person that engages in violence. I just simply don't. It's a waste of my time and it's a waste of my energy. I just as soon leave you with your violent spirit and walk on off in as much joy as I'm able to maintain at that moment. Anyway, the abusive behavior, the negative thoughts, my dad told me that no man was ever going to want me because I was a fool, I was foolish, I didn't make any sense. My mother told me that I walked like a farmer. She told me that, well, when I asked her if she thought I was pretty, she actually said she didn't want any pretty girls, but that she thought I was attractive. I don't know, in my mind, if you're not pretty, you're ugly. So I had very low self-esteem, very low self-worth, and that was my childhood. This is Dr. Bankhead at the Struggle in Thinking Out Loud. I'm grateful for I'm fully grateful.